Making a Murderer, Steven Avery case. If you all have not seen the documentary Making a Murderer, you need to go watch it. There's 2 seasons now. 4 or 5 years ago, Netflix came out with this documentary that took 10 years to make. And after I finished watching it, I couldn't believe what I had watched. Similar to the Tiger King stuff, I just thought, how does this stuff even happen? But this was atrocious. And it was actually one of the first videos that I did regarding wrongful conviction stuff. And, you know, I've had my own share of run-ins in the past with the legal system, and when you have to go through it yourself, it's really hard. So when I saw this documentary, I thought there could be something that maybe I could do to help. I don't know if I helped or not, but I did make quite a few videos, some of which, you know, I think there's one that has over 800,000 views on it, and then the others have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30,000 views or whatever. But I think there were some videos that had some really good information in them that I had made, like the one with the key fob, excuse me, with the key fob on the counter over at Teresa Halbach's house when the news people came over and did an interview. It looked like the key that was found at Avery's property was actually sitting on the counter. I still think that was the key. And another thing that I think, the video that I made that has like 800,000 views or whatever it was, that video, now I'm kind of questioning that video now, because in that video, you have law enforcement officer Andy Coburn, who happened to be at just every place where they discover new evidence. He's like a super cop, super detective. But in that video that I made, it sounds like in the background, after the dispatcher says it's Teresa Halbach's vehicle, it sounds like somebody says, "The car's here." It sounds like someone says, "The car's here." And if I didn't have to go do stuff today, I would go back and find the video and play the clip. But I don't have time to do it, I don't think. If I do, I'll insert it here. If not, just I'll see if I can find it, and I'll link the video in the description of this video, and you can watch the entire video.
And it lists to Teresa Halbach.
Okay.
Okay, that's what you're looking for, Andy?
99 Toyota.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Bye-bye. Teresa Halbach.
Okay.
Teresa Halbach.
Okay.
Teresa Halbach. Oh, Teresa Halbach.
Okay.
Halbach.
Okay. Okay.
But now I question that a little bit, because I've always thought, and even in season 2 of Making a Murderer, it really made me think my thought was right. I'd always thought that law enforcement officer Andy found the vehicle parked someplace, and he called in the plates to confirm that it was the vehicle. And then when the dispatcher confirmed it was the vehicle, that's when it sounds like someone in the background says, "The car's here."
Okay.
I even play it in slow motion, and I slow down the audio so you can hear it. And it really sounds to me like someone saying, "The car's here." Now, why am I talking about this? I know you guys are wondering, why is Ripper rambling? Well, I'm not rambling. Sort of am. But on Sunday evening, Steven Avery's attorney, Kathleen Zellner, I'll pull the tweet up here. She tweeted out a bombshell of a tweet, and the Making a Murder community woke up and they're like, whoa. And this was the tweet that she tweeted on Sunday evening. Tomorrow, you will find out who really planted Teresa Halbach's RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard. If you know who planted the vehicle, you know who was involved with the murder. It's her vehicle. There's so many questions, though. Like, for example, her boyfriend ended up with her planner. Her planner was in the car. So how did he get that? You would have to have a, I'm gonna show you what she meant, because she did a filing on Monday, yesterday. There's a new witness that came forward, but as I'm thinking about all this, like, you would have to have some kind of big conspiracy for all this stuff to be true. You have to have law enforcement officer Andy finding the vehicle, and then you have to have him working with Bobby Dassey, because that's who the witness says they saw planting the vehicle. And then you also have to have the boyfriend, ex-boyfriend of Teresa, Ryan, getting her day planner somehow. All these people almost have to be working together for this to happen. In season 2 of Making a Murderer, Ryan has the book with her writings in there, and she did not have time to go home and drop that book off, but he found it, he says, at her place. Maybe she did have time to go home and drop it off. I mean, that would explain that away, but if not, why, if he was in her vehicle, why would he take that with him? And then law enforcement officer Andy finds the vehicle, calls it in, and then you have Bobby Dassey goes and plant it. Yeah. I don't think they can all work. So now I don't know which one to believe, because it seems like all of these things happened. I mean, we have the recording of law enforcement officer Andy calling in the plates. We have that. We have proof of the ex-boyfriend Ryan with the planner. Like, that stuff we can touch, see, feel, all that stuff here. But this witness who came forward on Sunday, are they really credible? Let's read what the filing says. Because if he's not credible, that's a problem. But here's the thing. He says he contacted the sheriff's department after he learned that the vehicle was found on the property. And he talked to a female, and he told her what he witnessed. Now, if that's true, and I'm pointing at, I don't even know who, but if that's true, if he actually called and turned over this information and said, this is what I saw, it doesn't matter, I don't think, if he actually saw it or not, because that is information that needed to be turned over to the defense by law. They have to turn that over. They don't get to pick and choose which stuff they turn over. If they kept that information out of the hands of Steven Avery and his attorneys, that's a clear-cut Brady violation. If he called and he gave that information, they have to turn it over. They have to include it. You can't just get stuff in and go, oh, well, we already know who did it, so whatever you said doesn't matter. No, that's not how it works. You have to turn it over to the defense. You you have the right in this country to have a fair trial. If that wasn't turned over, that could be the thing. But let's 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 read what it is. Let's read what she filed. I'll put it up here on the screen. So let me read the affidavit first. She did file for a stay, appeal, and remand for petitioner to file supplemental post, blah, blah, blah. New evidence of a Brady violation and a third-party Denny suspect in Wisconsin. They have a Denny suspect rule that you can use so that you can try to name another suspect. And if you can do that, it would really help you in a case. And we will note that Bobby Dassey was a star witness for the prosecution. And here he is being named as one of the people that planted this vehicle. So let's read this here. Let me get to the actual affidavit. Kathleen here is talking about a new witness that came forward on the 11th. He worked for a newspaper company in the early hours of November 5th, 2005. He witnessed two individuals. Let me just go to the affidavit. All right, here we go. This is the actual affidavit. This is the exhibit. He lives in Manitowoc, has lived there for over 20 years. So for someone to come forward, this information has to be a little scary. It says in 2005, he was employed as a driver for, looks like the Gannett newspaper. He delivered papers in and around the Avery salvage yard. For those of you that don't know about this case, I highly recommend going and watching Making a Murder Season 1 and Season 2. It's a fascinating story. He was driving his personal car. He cannot recall the make and model of the car. That's not important anyway. Let's read what he says. On Saturday, November 5th, 2005, I was delivering papers on the Avery salvage yard in the early morning hours before sunrise. I drove down the highway. Now, this is something that we probably should look into. Is we can go to Google Earth. If you're on a PC, you can use Google Earth Pro, and you can go back and get satellite images from 2005, which I will do. And then you can actually go and look how the land was laid out in 2005. I drove down Highway 147 and I turned left onto Avery Road. Soon after I turned onto Avery Road, I witnessed an individual who I later realized was Bobby Dassey and another unidentified older male pushing a dark blue RAV4 down Avery Road on the right side towards the junkyard. Bobby Dassey was shirtless, even though it was early November. So if it's November in Wisconsin, it's probably cold. And if someone's not wearing a shirt, you probably would remember that. The second man appeared to be in his 50s or early 60s, had a long gray beard, was wearing a worn puffy jacket, had a larger frame, and was around 6 feet in height. That is not Steven Avery. Although Steven Avery has had a beard, I've not seen him with a long beard. And back then, I'd have to go back and look at the season 1. I don't even think he had a beard during the times of his lawsuit. I don't recall seeing that during that time, but I could be wrong. The RAV4 did not have lights on. And then he has a photograph marked where he saw the RAV4. So this is something we're going to want to look at on Google Earth, and I'm going to tell you why here in a little bit. I drove down Avery Road towards the mailboxes, left the Herald Times in the mailbox, and turned back around. I felt very afraid as I approached two individuals because Bobby Dassey attempted to step in front of my car, blocking my exit. I was within 5 feet of Bobby Dassey and my headlights were on the entire time. And I think he means his car was within 5 feet, not himself. But I could be wrong. The older man ducked down behind the open passenger door. I swerved to the right and drove in the shallow ditch to avoid hitting Bobby Dassey. I called out, "Paper boy, gotta go," because I was afraid for my safety. Bobby Dassey looked me in the eye, and I could tell with the look in his eyes that he was not happy to see me there. I knew that Bobby Dassey and the older individual were doing something creepy. So he must have had some kind of feeling of like, sometimes you have this instinct or something where something feels off. So he must have had one of those feelings. Now this is, well, one thing we also need to look at is where he says he swerved to the right and drove into the shallow ditch. We need to find out where he says he saw this vehicle, and then we need to see if there actually was a shallow ditch there. Now, I don't know if it would actually be a ditch because I actually went out and looked at my roads out at my place here because we have around our place, there's a 1 mile loop pretty much of a gravel road. We don't have ditches, but what we do have is when you build these roads, you have to build them up so the water runs off of them. Otherwise, they'll wash out. So the roads are built up. There's not really a ditch on each side, but technically there is like a ditch. It's a runoff. It's a place where the water runs down. But if someone looked at it, and maybe I'll take a picture of it, it might look like a ditch maybe. I mean, they're not really a full-blown ditch. It's just a place where you build the road up and you have these slopes where the water runs down and you keep it off the road. So maybe it was one of those, he says a shallow ditch, so maybe he's talking about a runoff. All right, well, let's keep going. Sorry, I like to ramble. After I learned that Teresa Halbach's car was found on November 5th, 2005, I contacted the Manitowoc Sheriff's Office and spoke to a female officer. I reported everything I've stated in this affidavit to the officer. The officer said, "We already know who did it." I provided my phone number and they said they would contact me soon. I never heard back from the police. Okay, so when he says they said we already know who did it, I believe that statement 100% because we have documents showing that they actually targeted Steven Avery even before the vehicle was found. I think on November 3rd, there's actual documents where I think someone from the FBI they put Steven Avery attached to this case or something somehow. I'd have to go back and look at this stuff. But they actually had him attached to this case as like a homicide suspect. Like he was already listed as a suspect for homicide. And this was when it was a missing persons case. They hadn't even found a vehicle yet. So they were going after him right from the get-go. So for him to say, they said we already know who did it, I totally believe that. My issue here, though, is if he saw Bobby Dassey, which is the brother of Brendan Dassey, Brendan Dassey is in prison right now for this as well. Wrongfully in prison. I firmly believe that both of them had nothing to do with this. I believe that the law enforcement people planted evidence to get these guys behind bars. I firmly believe that 100%. And there's so much evidence out there that shows this kind of stuff. However, here's my issue. If law enforcement officer Andy actually saw the vehicle and called it in, and in season 2, we actually have someone that came forward and says they saw the vehicle and reported it to law enforcement officer Andy at a convenience store. If that happened, how in the world do we go from law enforcement officer Andy seeing the vehicle and calling it in to Bobby Dassey planting the vehicle on the salvage yard. How do we go from point A to point B? That's where I'm really confused, and maybe someone has the answer out there. But then we also have to throw in the ex-boyfriend. Ryan had the planner, which Teresa had in her vehicle that day she went missing, because her handwritten notes are in the actual planner. And then from season 2, we know that Ryan at some point had the planner because he made copies of the pages. And on those copies were her handwritten notes from her earlier phone calls that day. So for all of this stuff to be true, we have to have Ryan involved because he had access to the vehicle because he had the planner. We have to have law enforcement officer Andy finding the vehicle and not doing anything with it and leaving it in the place where it was, or talking to Bobby and saying, you need to go plant this vehicle. My problem is how can all three of these things be true? We have evidence of the phone call where Andy's calling in, or the dispatch call. I mean, we have that. Do we know for certain that someone's saying the car's here in the background? No, but it sure sounds like it. Under oath, Andy said that he was just confirming the license plate on the flyer. I don't know if that's true or not. To me, I don't see the reason to do that, but maybe he's just really thorough at his job. I mean, he did find all this evidence planted. I mean, he was there when all this stuff was uncovered. So maybe, he's just really good. Or maybe something else. So how is it that if this witness is credible, how is it that we go from law enforcement officer Andy seeing the vehicle to Ryan having access to the vehicle to Bobby planting the vehicle? Someone explain in the comments. Maybe law enforcement officer Andy did not see the vehicle. Maybe the guy that came forward in season 2, maybe he wasn't credible. Maybe that was a lie. But then we still have to think, how did Ryan get the planner? Maybe Teresa did have time to go home and drop the planner off there before she went back to Avery's place. Or something. I mean, we were told that she didn't have time to actually make that drive back home, but maybe she did. So we would have to say that she did go back home and dropped her planner off, and that's how Ryan got it. We have to believe that law enforcement officer Andy was actually calling in the plates off of the flyer, the missing persons flyer. And then we have to discredit the person that in season 2 said he told law enforcement officer Andy that he saw the car parked over on this bridge. So if we rule all that out, then we could see how this happened. Or maybe it can all happen. I don't know. Someone please tell me, how could all this stuff happen? But here's the thing, at the end of all this, regardless of any of that, if this guy did call the sheriff's department and report what he saw on November 5th, where is that information? Also, line number 7 here, he says, after watching season 1 of Making a Murderer, I contacted Avery's trial attorneys to inform them of what I saw. I never heard back. Now, I'm going to guess that after the show, they had a ton of calls and messages and information, because just the tip line after the press conference that we had, just the tip line and the amount of messages that I got was crazy. I mean, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks. It was nonstop of messages and calls coming in, a lot of which were just stupid. Um, people, I still can't believe people would do this. And these were adults calling in saying, well, all you have to do is watch the documentary. You'll know who did it. I mean, or people calling in playing the song off TikTok, you know, Carol whacked him, whatever it is. Call after call of these people just being ignorant, wasting my time and other people's time. Really not other people's time, because I was the only one calling people back. I was the only one taking the calls. So I guess they wasted my time, but I get it. I understand that these guys probably got a ton of phone calls and messages, and they probably could not follow up every call or lead that they got. And maybe he said, hey, I saw something, call me back. If there's, I got messages and I did call everybody back, I believe. I think I did. There were some that did not leave messages. I called back. I don't know if there were some that called that didn't leave messages if I never got back to them, but I sure tried to call every one of them back. And I will tell you, the best one I got was this little kid that called that said Carol did it. And I still have this recording, and maybe one day I'll release it. I don't know. I don't even know if I can legally. But anyway, they called in and said they were Carol's neighbor and that Carol did it, and they knew that Carol did it because Carol came over and told them that she did it. Now I'm thinking this kid's probably 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Small kid. They left it on a voicemail. And then maybe 30 minutes later, they called again, left another voicemail and said, don't call back. My brother got my mom's phone and left you a message, but don't call back because I don't want my brother to get into trouble. And then about 30 minutes after that, another call, and it was the same kid. and I listened to this message so many times because it was funny. They called back acting like their mother, and they said, hey, I just want to let you know you don't need to call back. My daughter got my phone and made a phone call, and she wasn't supposed to. And then she realized that she was telling on herself and said, I'm sorry, I meant my son called you, and you don't need to call back. There's no need to call back. Thank you. So this kid was, they called and then they regretted calling, leaving a message, and tried to blame it on their brother. And then they called acting like the mom, saying that my daughter called. And then she realized, like, oh my gosh, I've just told on myself, and said it was my son who called. But I still have it. I don't know how many times I listened to it because it was funny. It's funny that you have this small child saying that Carol came over and told me personally that she did it, and then trying to get out of it. And as a kid, I remember doing prank phone calls to people. Of course, we always did the ones like, this is so-and-so with so-and-so appliances. Is your refrigerator running? I don't know why people would answer yes. They're like, oh, you better go catch it. Stupid stuff like that. But that was back in the days when you had phone books and you could just call people out of the phone book. No caller ID, no nothing. And as kids, we thought it was absolutely funny. And as a kid, you don't realize that adults can tell a kid's voice. So anyway, sorry to ramble. I don't even know how I got onto that. But anyway, because of this phone call with the attorneys. Yeah, I can understand how they might have had so many calls that they could not call them all back. And, I don't know what kind of message you left. But anyway, what are your thoughts? I mean, is this witness credible? Was, did he really see this happening? And the thing that we have to think about is Bobby Dassey is the brother of Brendan Dassey. You have their mother, Barbara, who she's got one kid in prison that should not be there. But now you have this come out and you got to just feel for her because it's a no-win situation for her. Do I get my current kid out of prison only to have my other one go into prison? I don't know if Barbara watches my channel still. I know she did watch videos back in the day, but or any Carla or any of the family members. I feel for you. It's a no-win for you guys. However, people need the truth. I mean, if Bobby was involved, yeah, we need to know. Like, people need to know, and these guys need to get out. Here's the thing, though. The state will never go after him. They will never admit to any of this stuff. They are not gonna say, okay, let's let Steven and Brendan out and let's go after Bobby. They will never, ever do it. Because here's the thing. If Steven gets out and we know he's innocent, which we know he is, if he gets out, law enforcement has already blown the case because they planted evidence against Steven. If they planted evidence against him, which I clearly believe they did, then they can't go after somebody else. They've run this whole case by planting evidence. They can't go after anybody. This is a defense attorney's dream case because you have, well, how do you explain Steven Avery's blood being found? Or Teresa's blood or DNA in his shoe. And, his blood was found in his car. They took blood samples from his finger or whatever, which I think came from his his bathroom sink. But there's no way they can prosecute anybody on this ever. So, Barbara, you don't have to sweat it. They can't go after Bobby, even if he was involved. There's no way. They won't admit they were wrong. They would have to admit that they planted all this other evidence if they go after him. I mean, it's bad. I can't imagine. But here's the thing. Imagine if you're the family of Teresa Halbach and Bobby was really involved. Let's say this witness is 100% credible and he saw this and it's true. Now you have this family of the victim. They will never get justice because the state can't admit what they did. They can't do it. Not only did they frame the guy once, but they did it twice. They can't admit that. So what I'm going to guess is the state and the courts that are involved in this whole thing, they're going to rule this guy out. But here's the thing. If he made that phone call, and hopefully there are phone records, hopefully he had a cell phone and he made it from a cell phone and he has those records. If he does, dang well Kathleen Zellner is going to find them. If he made that phone call and they did not turn that over to the defense, it's clear-cut Brady violation. Clear-cut. I think. I mean, I'm not an attorney. I mean, if you get a law degree on Google, does that count? It's a joke. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that law enforcement, Ryan and Bobby and this unidentified person, do you think all these people were working together? I mean, that's a pretty big conspiracy theorist. I mean, I can't see all of those things happening. So I mean, what's true, what's not? That's the problem with this stuff. When you have people coming forward that might not be credible. I'm not saying this guy isn't credible. I mean, we've always suspected that Bobby could have been a suspect. I mean, well, let's think about this before I go. There were computer files that were pretty much hidden that I can't remember if it was Kratz or who had they labeled the disk or the hard drive. They made a copy of the hard drive, and there were things on there, but they didn't put it out there. It was things that allegedly Bobby had searched for, like bondage and killing and stuff like that. And when they labeled, I think when they labeled the hard drive copy or whatever, they said it was, I think they said it was Brandon's computer, but it was really like a family computer. But it was later discovered that there was stuff on there that Bobby had searched for that was really disturbing, that kind of made you think that he was searching for this stuff before the crime actually happened. So if you put that into the trial, and then you put this into the trial, I don't think a jury ever convicts Steven Avery or Brendan Dassey on this stuff. I mean, I think this is a clear-cut Brady violation if it can be proven that this guy called, but you know, I'm just a content creator on YouTube, so what do I know? Let me know what you guys think. I didn't want to get into this case again, but with news like this, how can you not? I was really into this case a long time ago, and there was a bunch of drama that started, and I just said, you know what? I'm not in it for this kind of stuff. And of course, we've had drama in the Don Lewis case too, and I was this stinking close to just walking away from it, but I thought, no, I'm not going to let these clowns win this time, because last time I did let them win. But drama is just something that comes with the territory, I guess. You're always going to have people that want to control others, and when you do not allow them to control you, they get mad. They get upset, and I don't understand why are there people out there that think they can control other humans? Why are there people out there that even today there's still people out there that think they can tell me what I can and cannot do? No. If I'm working for someone, sure, I get it. You can have guidelines and rules and things that, parameters set. But I'm doing this on my own time. Therefore, I'm going to do it how I want to do it. Now, if the family of Don Lewis said, "Hey, we would like this, this, and this done, and don't do this," sure, because I am working for them. I am, and not being paid. I will make that clear. Not being paid, volunteering my time as we are all doing. But something like that I could understand. But for individuals to be mad because I won't do what they want, I'll give you an example of someone who wanted me to go after Carol on all this animal stuff. And I said, no, not going to do it. And they got really irate, like super mad. And I don't understand. I don't understand that stuff. I don't get it at all. I'm a grown ass man. Like, I'm an independent journalist. I will do what I want to do. I'm a rogue journalist at that. But that's something that I don't understand at all. And I will, for the record, I will tell you that the family of Don Lewis has never said, don't do this or that or whatever. They have allowed me to speak freely and put out what I think I should put out. So I really don't understand people that are these control freaks. And sorry to ramble about it, but it's an issue, and it always comes up. It still comes up with people talking crap behind the scenes because they're not getting their way. But that's tough shit. I mean, I guess you can't make everybody happy, right? Anyway, that's something that bothers me because I don't understand. Like, what right would I have to tell you people what to do and not to do, unless if you're working for me, then there's different things that we need, like examples. The Don Lewis case. There is information that we have to set restrictions on that we cannot put out. So stuff like that, we're like, hey, let's not talk about that. Let's not put this stuff out there. Let's keep it to ourselves. But of course, stuff gets leaked out. I mean, I've had people come to me even in person and say, well, so-and-so told me this and that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. If they told this person, they told another person. And then eventually it's going to get back to someone that we don't want it to get back to. All right. I think I'll edit this last stuff out. Hopefully I'll edit it out. I don't know. We'll see. So if you're watching this and you didn't hear my long ramble and complaining, then I took it out. But if you heard it, then I didn't. I didn't have time. So all right, everybody, I'm going to go. And yes, I will do a live eventually. I don't know when. I've got things I got to do today. Stuff with the RV is very time consuming, as is life itself. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. I'm Ripper. That's Zerk, my producer. And for the record, I really can't control Zerk's costumes. Zerk has a personality of his own, so if he dresses up like certain people, what am I to do? He's the producer. And he's also for humor. He's not real, okay? It's for humor. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. I'm Ripper, and I'm out.